Captain Andrew Ingerson. Got it. Yep, Captain Andrew Ingerson. I'm the Director of Business Operations at the 386 Expeditionary Contracting Squadron. I'm joined here today by Master Sergeant Seth Sweeter. He is the flight chief for our GPC flight there, which stands for Government Purchase Card. And like Ms. De La Rocha said, today we're going to be talking about the System for Award Management of Registration process. Okay, so why are we all here today? Well, the purpose of this training, like we said, is to talk about SAM. And the reason that it matters is because it's a mandatory requirement to do business with the United States government. So you have to be registered within SAM to be eligible to compete for any contract awards above the micro purchase threshold, which locally in Kuwait is $35,000. Before we jump into all of our content, there's a couple important points that we wanted to identify. So, first and foremost, using SAM is free. There should not be any cost associated with registering for the website. However, there are some companies that provide services to help guide you through the process that you can research and engage with yourself. Hopefully today we can help you guys figure out how to do it yourselves, but those services are available. And some of these different codes which identify your entity that Major Forsey already mentioned, such as the DUNS, the CAGE code, the NCAGE, and your SAM identifier. We're going to walk you through how to get those codes, but the information you use must be identical. So you're going to enter information that describes your entity, your business, and you need to make sure that that information matches when you register for all three of those codes. And at the end of the presentation today, we're going to address some questions that were already sent to us by Ms. De La Rocha, and we're also going to open the floor for any new questions, but obviously more questions may pop up as you go through this process. So here on the slide, we're providing the Federal Service Desk link. So please use that resource to go and do some research and find information to answer your questions. Okay, so our overview for the presentation today. First, I'm going to talk about how you register and get your sam.gov login to get access to the website. Then I'll go over gathering different bits of core data that you're going to need for your registration. I'll go over how you submit for your assertions, which is the goods and services that your company provides. And then I'll pass it over to Master Sergeant Sweeter. He'll talk about submitting your representations and certifications, entering in your points of contact, and then submitting the registration. And then we'll go over any questions you guys have. So when you get started, here's a screenshot of the home screen for sam.gov. We have the hyperlink at the front of the slide. You will click Get Started, and that will pull up this screen right here. So the way that SAM is organized, it provides these 4 steps to get ready to register. To be frank, we don't quite agree with this chronological process to get registered within SAM. We think it makes more sense to start with step 3, which is to get your actual login information. So for the sake of the presentation today, that's where we're going to get started. So on the screenshot that you see, we have a red box that covers a hyperlink where you will click to get to a quick start guide for your login. So once you click there, here is a screenshot for the next screen that'll pop up, and it's a hyperlink that will help you create your login.gov account. So once you select that, it'll pull up this this large page here. I know that the font's small, it's a lot of information. I'm not going to walk you through all of it. It's pretty self-explanatory. The main idea here is that you're going to confirm your email and create a password to get your login. So once you have that, you will be able to get into sam.gov, and a screen will pop up that shows you the different steps to register. And the next step is going to be gathering and submitting your core data. So there's 2 categories of registrants. that SAM.gov identifies and that drive a requirement to provide different information. So if you're US based, you need a DUNS code, a DUNS number, you need your tax identification number and your banking information. But for international registrants, which is more applicable for today, we're going to focus on these two requirements on the page. The first one is your NCAGE, which is your NATO commercial and government entity code. And also you'll need the DUNS number as well. So on the slide, we've provided the links that you need to go to get these two separate numbers. And we're going to start by showing you guys how to get the DUNS number. So here's the link to get your DUNS number. This is a screenshot of what you'll see when you go to that link. You will click begin a DUNS search and request process. Once you get to the next screen, you're going to see a drop down to select your country. And once you select your country, this is what your next screen will look like. You'll enter your business name, street, city, phone, and click submit. Once you do that, a search result will pop up. It'll show you if a DUNS number has already been provided for that business information. So if you previously entered it, you'll be able to find that number. But if that is not the case and you're new to the system, you will select request a new DUNS number at the bottom. Once you select that, another page will pop up and it will ask you to provide more legal information on your business entity. It's pretty self-explanatory. Fill in that information and click to submit your request. And once you do that, the DUNS number will be provided to you, and you'll need to set that number aside for when we get back to the SAM.gov login to register. So that's your first piece of core information that you need. The second piece is your NCAGE code, and that's what we'll talk about now. So on the slide prior, we provided the link to get to the NCAGE. So once you click on that link, this is the page that will pop up. Down on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you're going to need to select NCAGE Request. And once you select that, this screen will pop up in front of you. And the idea is that if your company may have previously submitted for an NCAGE, you can search. So enter the information on the page and click search. But if this is your first time, you're going to click the box on the right-hand side, which is titled Request New. And that's how you'll start the process to request that NCAGE code. Once you click Request New, this is the page that will appear. And there's going to be 9 different sections of data that you input, similar to how you did that for the DUNS process. So here on this screen, we just provided a screenshot that shows several of those different sections where you're going to have to input data, go through those, enter the data for your organization, and click submit, and that's how you'll get your NCAGE code. So now we're going to switch gears and focus back on the SAM.gov website, right? So your first step was to get access to the site. Now you have your 2 required bits of core data. So now we're going to show you how to enter that data along with your entity information into SAM.gov. So here's the screen that you'll see, I guess the menu that you'll see when you get into SAM.gov. It's the screenshot on the right-hand side that says register entity. So there'll be an overview page that you'll fill out. You're going to fill out a purpose of registration, which involves answering 2 or 3 questions. And then after that, based on your answers, a page to submit your core data will pop up. And on the screenshot, you can see all the different categories of information that are going to be required for you to register your entity. So this is where the NCAGE code is going to be needed, and this is where you're going to need to enter your DUNS number as well. The screenshot on the left side of this slide gives you an example of what it looks like when you have that information entered, and you will click Save and Continue. to process through the core data. And next, we're going to talk about submitting your assertions within SAM. So now that you have all the background legal information on your company and all your core data inserted, you're going to enter information related to the goods and services that your company provides. So again, on the right-hand side of this slide, I showed you a screenshot of what the menu will look like. There's several categories of information that you'll enter. You're going to start with your goods and services. You're going to enter information related to your size metrics. It's optional to enter EDI information and also to enter information related to disaster response information. So we're going to focus on goods and services and size metric. So next, with goods and services, the way that the goods and services are identified is through NAICS codes. NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System. And if you're not familiar with NAICS codes, we provided a link to get to the census.gov website where you can search to find the CAGE codes that apply to your different supplies and services that you provide. So it's pretty easy to use. You can go to that website, and if you're a construction company, you can search for different services related to that, and it will provide you with the CAGE, it will provide you with the NAICS codes that you need to use. So once you have all the NAICS codes that are associated with your organization, look at the screenshot on the left side of this slide. That's where you're going to search for the code, and once you find the correct one, you can add it to your profile here for the registration purposes. You can select as many NAICS codes as necessary, and you can also identify the primary NAICS codes for what your company focuses on. And after the goods and services, you're going to fill in information related to size metrics. So here on the screenshot, you can see that the two input fields are entering your annual receipts, and then also entering the number of employees that are staffed at your organization. And you will click Save and Continue. And now I'm going to pass it on to Master Sergeant Sweeter, and he'll talk about submitting representations and certifications.
All right. So step 4, as you can see on the screen, is submitting your reps and certs. So in this step, as you'll see on the right-hand side, the box kind of prompts you with a number of different areas that need to be filled in. The first 4 are FAR responses. For the sake of presentation, we didn't provide those because we're not sure if they ever change, and if they do, we'll be providing you with the wrong information. So as you go down the list, just kind of answer the first 4 questions as they're prompted. Make sure you read them. The next one is going to be architecture and engineering response. If that applies, by all means, enter it. The next one is going to be the defense responses. And then you're going to review the FAR and DFAR's reps and certs, and then you're providing your financial assistance responses. So as far as the questionnaire responses, as I said, there's a series of questions that relate to the FAR, A&E, DFARs, and financial assistance. The biggest thing here is make sure you're reading them through thoroughly, answer the questions as they relate to that particular guidance. And again, they're specific to each category, so they do change as you go. The system does give you a direct link, makes it super easy, allows you to click on it. And by selecting that reference, it opens a new window and it takes you to that provision. So again, as I said, review each provision, select the appropriate response as it relates to your company. And once you're done with that, make sure you review it, select the certification box, which is going to be on the bottom of the screen, and then select Save and Continue. The next step is going to be entering your points of contact. The 4 that we'd seen in there was the accounts receivable, the electronic business, the government business, and the optional POCs. It's important that the correct information is filled out for this. This is how we in the government can see who we need to contact if necessary. And again, if your company is small, depending on its size, it could be the same person, it could be someone different. But ensure that the information is correct. That way, if we need to get a hold of you, we have that ready to us. The next one is the SBA Supplemental Page. It doesn't really apply here, but it does in the state side. And the reason we put this on there is depending on what your goals are for the future, you obviously can do business with the government state side. So We really work with the Small Business Administration for that. As I said, it doesn't really apply here locally, but if you have any information on it or you want to gather some more, we provide you the hyperlink to the Small Business Administration. By all means, feel free to browse through that. The next one is the submit the registration. So this is the box you see. When all of the information that you put in is correct, make sure it's valid, make sure everything's good to go. If there's corrections to be made, by all means, please do. And if everything is correct, you're going to submit this, hit the submit button. So when that happens, the system will timestamp it, confirming that it's been submitted. And as you can see, it gives you a nice little timestamp. So if you ever have to refer to that, you'll have it. I would recommend, print screening that or saving that somewhere so you have verification or proof on your end. But the system should do it for you. It's one thing to keep in mind that this process can take up to 10 days for your profile to become active. And there's an additional roughly 24 hours for it to hit the other systems that we use. You may at times need a notarized letter just affirming the information that you put in the system. I wouldn't say that it's prevalent. Oftentimes it's rare, but just so you're aware that may be needed. And the system does give you a status tracker, so you can at any time go in there and see where your application or your registration is. That's a helpful little tool the system gives you as well. As far as the questions, I know there were some questions submitted, so we pulled those, and if there's any more, by all means, let us know, and we'll be happy to answer those. So the first one is what is the right approach to expanding our offering to the Middle East? And our best answer for that is check the appropriate websites. Obviously, we're talking about SAM, and there's JCCS. Make sure you're checking that regularly. You should get notified of opportunities, I believe, based on the NAICS code. So ensure that your NAICS codes are correct. And look for other partnership opportunities with local vendors that are already doing business with the government. Partnerships, collaboration with that is another good way. So the next question is, how do we get inquiries for SAM registered company from the U.S. military bases? Business already has been registered and need to understand to move forward. Again, make sure the appropriate goods and services are selected in your SAM profile. I recommend checking SAM for opportunities, as again, use based on your NAICS code, and check on the DODAC. So ours locally is FA 5703. They're going to be different based on your location or the contracting office you may be doing business with, but regularly checking that is another helpful tool. SAM is not accepting our address, even though it is the same as the DUNS. This is a hard one. Honestly, I would recommend contacting the service help desk if you can, either through phone or by email. We provided that to you. That's a tricky question that honestly, I don't think that we have enough data to answer, but by all means, please check with them. They'd be more than willing to help. Next question is what systems we register in. As I said before, SAM and JCSS, that's primarily what we're recommending and we're briefing on today. There's another ones beyond that. I know Major Forsey had talked about WAF and then PI and all that. Make sure you're in those. That's a plethora of systems that you could be registered with.
Right. These are the two mandatory systems for business. Yeah, it's a good place to start.
So it says, do we register in your organization in various categories as vendors, or in one common registration is adequate? I would say start with SAM and you can grow from there, but the first and foremost, SAM is the absolute requirement. So start with that. Next one is we've obtained the DUNS and CAGE number, and excuse me for a second, and they want to know how to proceed. Also, we have finalized all the requested steps in JCCS. However, it was mentioned in the JCS questionnaire that we should insert the CAGE number of the parent company and all the related companies. We're one of 35 companies under the same umbrella, and most of them are not registered in SAM. What do we do next? So as I said before, the next step is to enter and update the core data in SAM. That's the main thing. JCS is a separate system other than SAM, and make sure that site where vendors can register showing details of contracts. You can jump out to the procurement data system. We call it FPDS, or in response to solicitations that can be found in SAM. Pending further questions, that's the end of our briefing.
Thank you so much. So we do have a few questions in here. What are the procedures to renew the unexpired SAM registration?
That's a great question. You can jump in, Captain, if you want, but I know it's important to go in and renew your SAM registration annually.
Yeah, so I just pulled up a slide that has a screenshot of the homepage. So when you initially register, you click Get Started, and when you renew, there's a button right underneath that to renew. And essentially what you're doing is you're going through that same menu of data fields and validating the information and clicking Submit at the end. And I think it's an annual requirement to make sure you're renewed. So what I would do is I would keep an eye on your expiration date and apply to renew it with plenty of time. That way there's no opportunity for a lapse, because one of the first steps that a contracting officer is going to take when they're reviewing your proposal for award is they're going to check SAM to make sure there's no exclusions and that you have an active registration.
Thank you so much. And can a company cancel its previous DUNS number and have a new one?
I don't know how to
I
answer that.
haven't experienced that before, but I believe that is possible. We can look into that. I'm looking at Major Forsey to see if he has any other information.
You can establish multiple DUNS numbers with a company.
Correct.
So one
Yeah.
company can have multiple DUNS numbers, that's for certain. Whether or not you are doing away with the DUNS number and why you would want to do that, I can't even think of a good reason. Dun & Bradstreet, and that's the other thing, it's an independent non-government entity. They don't work for the federal government. They are a credit rating agency. That's primarily what they do. And they maintain databases of companies associated with physical addresses. So if there's already a physical address associated with a DUNS number, you're going to have to work with Dun & Bradstreet, the company, in order to sort that out. But it is possible to get more than one DUNS number associated with the same company, but they are tied to physical addresses.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And someone said, I can't get through with the renewal of my company through the SAM account due to an address discrepancy. So I'm guessing they're having an issue changing their address.
I think, again, I would point you back to what Major Forsey said and work with Duns & Bradstreet to get that updated if you can.
Perfect. Let me just go through this. For businesses below $35,000 is SAM registration compulsory?
Locally, no. We can use the government purchase card for a company that's not registered in SAM. Although I would say it does help. It's never a bad thing to do it. It makes life a lot easier for us to verify your company. But no, as far as required, no, it's not required.
Thank you. Is there, no. This is about the help desk that you already spoke about. What if the previous management of a company received a debarment notice and was due? Will this hinder the company's new management to continue participating in new opportunities within SAM?
I would say yes, because the rating isn't based on the management, it's based on the company. So yes, it would. It could potentially negatively impact the company.
Okay. Someone has a very specific case. I received this email. His email is a reminder that your public API key is expiring today. Please make sure to use the newly generated API key before the current key expires. So is this email a formal one that is sent to companies when the registration is about to expire? Or could this be a possible scam?
It could potentially be a scam. I don't know enough about that term to adequately speak to it. I don't know if that's a dual authentication email or what that is.
The help desk does have a section that talks about API keys. So I would potentially look there first, just to make sure that email is addressing something that's covered by the help desk.
Okay. And then back to small businesses questions. Can a small business register if they're not American in SAM? I guess as you were saying, you would suggest it, right?
You would be registered under the size metrics, but not with the SBA. That's reserved for US companies.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
important to note that the different NAICS codes use different size metrics. So when we go into our system and we see that, hey, based on this dollar value, they would be considered a small business back in the United States. The small business set aside doesn't necessarily apply out here. So based on the number of people or your annual receipts will qualify you yes or no based on a small business, but it's not necessarily going to help you. It won't hurt you, but it won't necessarily help you currently in this location.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any local support for this process in Bahrain, as far as you know?
I don't think we've been here long enough to have a good POC, but that's something, if that's a question, we can definitely do some digging to try to find a POC in Bahrain and try to get an email and connect you that way, but I can't adequately say yes or no. I would imagine there's a contracting office somewhere that would be able to walk a vendor potentially through that. And we can do some digging if we need to.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Can we access SAM with the same login credentials of separate PCs at the same time?
That's a good question. I have not encountered that situation before. I'd say the individuals would have to just try it out, see if it works, and if not, you just have to do one PC at a time. Is there a specific reason why they need to do that?
Intra, if you would like to elaborate on that question. Okay, then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, could you guys share your contact details in case people have SAM specific questions?
Yes, I don't think that'd be an issue. We can give you our email addresses to our organizational boxes, and we can definitely provide you with that.
Thank you.
But I would preface that saying that we're not typically the SAM experts. We can answer general questions, but again, I would point you back to the help desk. They'd be much more helpful than we can be. But if it's a simple question, by all means, we'd be more than happy to help out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the clarification. Okay, so DOS is implementing use of small businesses set aside overseas. Well, we understand there is no SBA requirement for this. Is the 386 considering this at all?
Yeah, you can jump in. I haven't seen that guidance. And until I do, I don't want to make any assumptions. So I would imagine if we're directed at some point to start looking at that, we will. But as the guidance currently stands, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also it's important to understand that the Department of State and the Department of Defense follow different regulations.
Great. Is there any specific requirement for registration of renewable energy companies and metal fabrication companies?
I would say no. I understand that the renewable energy is a growing business, so I believe there's a NAICS code for that. Again, add that to your SAM profile and start with that.
Okay, perfect. And we have a gentleman in the US. He says, I have a new company here in the US, and I was wondering if there was a list of services you are seeking that will go out to bid. How do you go about finding local partners, so American partners?
I can start with that. So I like a lot of what we do here and even stateside, and I won't speak for everybody, is what I call on-demand purchasing. So we have a general idea that things that we're going to be buying in the future, but a lot of things we're buying them as they come in. So I would reach out, and this is the portion of partnering with local vendors. If you're in a particular region or you have an interest in a particular region, I would reach out to that contracting office and ask them for a list of vendors they do business with. It shouldn't be a secret. The biggest thing though, again, is anything over the micro purchase normally is put out through SAM for a formal solicitation. So continually check that website for the DODACs, and you can ask the contracting office for their DODAC and continually check for opportunities that way.
Thank you. And if a company has a DUNS number, does that officially mean that they've been vetted by the US government?
No.
Okay, perfect. So the other questions are very technical. So what I'll do is that I will send them to you via email, if you have answers to that, and then we can share it with the people on the call, if that's okay. So if there's no more SAM general questions or less technical questions, I think we can end the workshop. Okay, I don't see
Thank
anything
you again
else.
for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for the presentation. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much to everyone who attended. I know a few of you were asking about the presentation, whether it's going to be shared. It will be shared. And we have recorded this meeting, so we will ask the US military to first approve it. And once they've approved the recordings, then we will share it with all the participants, and we will upload it on YouTube as well so that you can have a look at it after. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.